Oh, there we go. There's the bell. All right. Okay, all right, here we go. So there's the do now. So press pause and do that do now real quick. Okay, all right. So what are we looking at here? Okay, reflect the following point over the x-axis. Now, remember the rule that we talked about what yesterday? Yeah. Which one do we actually change when we reflect a point over the x-axis? And when I say which one, I mean, is it x or is it y? Which one changes? Yeah, actually, the y changes, right? So the -8 stays the same, and the 7 becomes its opposite. What's the opposite of 7? Yep, -7. Okay, that's it. Okay, all right, Unit 8, Day 7, Tuesday. Homework's online, right? And announcements. Any announcements? Let's see. Homeroom. Okay. Uh, I got a thank you note from on a quiz from last Friday. Now you might think, hey, how do you get a thank you note on a quiz from last Friday? So instead of writing in their name, the person wrote a thank you note. All right, I think because last week was teacher appreciation week. So and then I thought, that's interesting. Like why wouldn't the person just write me an email? And then I thought, oh, this is brilliant because if one of you write me an email, I can tell who wrote me the note. If it was written on the quiz, right, where the name's supposed to go, then I'll never find out who it is. So I thought that was pretty well thought out, actually. Okay, all right. So whoever you are, thanks for the note. Okay, all right. Uh, I'm. I mean, I actually don't know, but I'm waiting till Wednesday or Thursday to send an email out to your parents with your grades, because it is my hope that fingers crossed. Okay, it is my hope that that by Wednesday I would know what the grading policy is, as it will be for the rest of the marking period, like how it will be finalized. Okay, so we'll see. Okay, I'm because once it comes out, I have to reformat the grade book to follow the grading policy, and then share that with you guys, and then share that with your parents. So yeah, I'll try to get it out as soon as possible. Okay. Now, by the time your parents see your grades, it would have included in this marking period the 2 quizzes and the 1 unit exam that we took. Okay. All right. So, all right. That's all I gotta say about that. And keep doing your homework. Uh, let's see. Now, where were we? So last week, I mean yesterday. If I remember correctly, I think this was the last thing we did. Okay, so we took a point and we learned about the rule. We reflected across the x and then the y, and then I had mentioned. So we did. Did we do this last? I mean, yesterday. Hold on. Let me press pause and think real quick. Hold on. Okay, I remember now. Nope, we did not. Okay, so why don't you take a couple of minutes, write this down, all right, in the notes. Because what we're gonna do today is 2 things. One is we are going to talk about uh, reflecting on the x and then the y-axis and then the y and the x-axis, meaning this, right? Because what we've been doing so far is to reflect just on one. Like every question that you see so far would say something like, if you reflect on the x-axis, right, what's the answer? If you reflect on the y-axis, what's the answer? And never before have I asked you guys to reflect in the 2 axes, one right after another, in the same question. Okay, so for example, if you look at this question right here, right, -12, 13, and I were to say, hey, reflect in the x-axis and then the y-axis, the question is, what would that final answer look like? Like, what would those points be? Okay, so to do that, you just have to do it one at a time. You can't do both at the same time. All right, no matter how much you want it to. So negative 12, 13. Now let's look at the first thing. The first thing is let's reflect on the x-axis. So remember what the rule is when you reflect. By the way, so this notation might be useful for many of you, all right? Because what this is saying is reflection of the x-axis, okay? So what's the reflection of the x-axis? So when you reflect off the x-axis, what's the coordinate that actually changes? Right, the y-coordinate, right? So here we have the ordered pair, x comma y. So the 13 changes. So it'll be negative 12 what? Right, negative 13. Now, knowing that, now we're going to perform a reflection over the y-axis. And then some of you might say this, okay? All right, don't do this. This is wrong. Some of you might say, well, okay, so if I have to reflect off the x-axis, then it's the y. No, the y-axis then is the x that changes. And that'll be 12, 13. No, 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 no. Nope. You're not reflecting this point anymore when you perform your second reflection. All right, so you're not looking at this, you're looking at this. Your second reflection is off of the new point. So what does that mean? You have to look at this real good, and then you say, okay, if I'm reflecting off of the y-axis, right, which one changes? Yep, this value, right, the x-axis changes. So negative 12 now becomes what? Right, positive 12, like that. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, let's do one more, okay? So let's use the same point, and this time we'll reflect off the x-axis and then the y-axis. Okay, so we're gonna switch, right? Notice how we were x-axis first and then y. Now we're gonna switch them. So same point. If I'm gonna reflect off the y-axis first, then look at this point. When we reflect off the y-axis, right, which value actually changes? Right, the x value, right? So this negative 12 now becomes what? Right, positive 12. So positive 12. The other one stays the same. That's still 13. Okay? Now that's done. Second part, we have to reflect off the x-axis. Right? So looking at this new point here, 12 comma 13, right? If I change the x-axis, which coordinate actually has to change? Right, the y. So what does a 13 become? Right, the opposite, which is negative 13. Okay, that's how you do it. All right, now let's see. Now I don't reckon that you'll see these too much in the 6th grade, like maybe in the 9th grade. So what we'll do is this. Let's do one more together, and then I'll let you try the last one on your own. Okay, unless you feel confident right now. If you feel really confident about doing this, you can press pause and do this while I go over it. Okay, all right. Let's keep going. So reflection of the x-axis first. X-axis, which means the y changes. So that's 4, positive 9. And then the second step is changing the y-axis. All right, reflecting over the y-axis on the new point. So that means the x changes. And that's what that would be. Okay. Let's see. Actually, you know what's really good? If I make a graph out of this, actually, you guys will see this a little better. Okay. Should I do this now? All right, let's finish this one first. Second one, I have to do the y-axis first. So if I do that, 4, negative 9, right? Y-axis, which means x changes. So there'll be negative 4, 9. And when we reflect over the x-axis, right, looking at this new point, what changes? Yep, the y changes. So it's negative 4, negative 9. Okay, let's see. This last one here. All right, again, we'll go over this. Reflect over the x-axis. All right. Let's see. Now, if I reflect over the x-axis, that means the y changes. So it'll be -10, +8. All right. By the way, I hope based on the mistakes I made in the last question that you understand why it's so important to pay attention to the details. All right, and be completely focused when we do this. Okay. All right. Let's see. Now, I mean, guys, I'm almost gonna tell you now, like if based on what I did on the last one, I think I was either looking at this or I was looking at this. All right, when I was doing the reflection, like which is not good. You should really just look at what's in front of you. So y-axis. Now, I have to turn this in. So I have to look at this as a new point. Reflect over the y-axis. That means the x changes. All right, so that means it's 10, 8. Okay, now let me double check. So reflect over the y-axis. I mean x-axis, so the y changes. So -8 becomes 8. Okay. And then I take this new point, reflect over the y-axis. That means the x changes. Okay, all right. So let's see if I was right. So we'll graph it. Okay. Now, by the way, some of you might say, "Hey, Mr. Ring, why don't we just graph it to begin with?" And again, it's the same. It's the same issue. You don't always have a graph paper that's provided to you. Okay. So let's see. What's the original point? -10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. -8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, what's the new point? What's the new point? -10, 8. So if I were to flip this original point over the x-axis, it has to land somewhere here. And I will be right. -10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. And if I take this, new point and I fling it over the y-axis, right? It will land somewhere over here, which would be 10, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, the point is not meant to be there. Okay, so in other words, the arrow would go something like this, right? It would go from here to here, and then it would get here to here, right? Okay, and then now let's see. Okay, let's finish this last part here. Wow, that took forever. Okay, so here I would take again, I'm switching it around this time. So I am reflecting over the y-axis, right? So -10, -8 becomes what? Yep. 10, -8, right? If I'm reflecting over the y-axis, the x changes. So it's 10, -8. That'd be right. And now I'm going to reflect over the x-axis. All right. Now looking at this new point, x-axis, which means the y changes. So it'll be 10, 8. Yeah? All right, let's see if I'm right. Where is this original point? -10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. -8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, new point. Where is it? 10, -8, right? If I swing this over the y-axis, right? 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right here. Okay, right over here. And then if I go over to the what? To the x-axis, which means it'll land somewhere over here, which is true. 10, 8, right? So 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, in other words, I went from here to here, and then I went from here to here. Okay, so the point, the end, the last thing here is right here. All right, that's the end here. Okay, all right, let's move on. All right, let's see. Now, instead of just reflecting single points, the goal of this unit or at least this topic, was for you to reflect shapes, meaning this. Would you be able to reflect an entire shape, right, like this, over the x or the y axis? Okay, now, but before we do that, before we could run, we need to talk about how to learn how to walk first. So before we graph shapes, right, one of the things I want to encourage you with is that when you're reflecting shapes, you're just looking at actual points that you were reflecting. So in other words, you can't reflect the whole shape at the same time. You still have to look at the points that make up the shape, right? Because at the end of the day, I'll give you an example. If you have 2 points here, right? You have a line, but if you add another point here, you have a triangle, right? And in a triangle, it's just made up of 3 points, right? In this case, it's A, B, and C. And if you add another point, now you got a quadrilateral, right? A, B, C, D, right? And in each of the cases, whether it's a single point, a line like this, a triangle, or a quadrilateral, which means it could be a rectangle, it could be a square, it could be a parallelogram, and it could be a trapezoid. It doesn't really matter. It's just how much work you would have to do for each question, right? So in the last question, when we reflected over the x or the y axis, right, it's 1 point, right? And then you have another point here somewhere, or down here somewhere. When you have a line, right, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to reflect the line, and then we're going to start reflecting some shapes, probably starting tomorrow. So, having said that, if I were to reflect this line, right, let's call this line AB. All right, so ignore this right now. Let's say we have to reflect line AB, right, across the x-axis. So we're going to reflect line AB across the x-axis. Where would this land, right? Would it land here, here, or the fourth quadrant? Okay, so what you need to know is this then. You need to know what the coordinates of both A and B are. So what's the coordinate of A? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So it's 4, 3. And what's the coordinate of B? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, 7, 7? Okay. All right. Now, having said that, if I were to reflect this across the x-axis, where would A prime be, right? Reflecting A across the x-axis, who would change? Right, the y, right? So it'll be 4, negative 3. So why don't we plot that first? All right, I'll use a different color. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So this is A prime. Okay, and then if we were to reflect B over the x-axis, what would B prime be, right? So the second value would change again. It will be 7, negative 7. All right, got that? So it will be 7, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, all right. Barely made it. Almost ran out of space. Okay, and then I'll connect these 2 points. All right, I'll just use a... I'm tempted to use a ruler, but this saves a little bit of time. Okay, and there you go, right? And that makes sense, right? So if you were to swing this line AB over the x-axis, that's what this line will look like. Okay, and then, so again, let me reiterate, right? If you can reflect the point, you could reflect the line. If you could reflect a line, you can reflect a shape like a triangle, right? You could reflect the shape like a rectangle. Okay, so don't get too intimidated by it. Okay, now let's say we have to reflect the shape. So now let's talk about shapes. Okay, so we have to reflect this across the x-axis. So here I got my xy axis. Okay, so let's see. Let's look at the first 3 points. So here you can tell it's a triangle, right? Because, you know, it says so. So A is negative 2, 1. All right, we'll do these two together, and then tomorrow you get some practice. This is point A. B is 1, 4. And C is 3, 2. So here's your triangle, okay? And we'll connect the... By the way, I would really like you guys to write this down, okay? Because at some point you will need to practice. You can't just, you know, look at this. All right. So here, and please use a graph paper, all right, if at all possible. So here we have our original triangle. All right, and what we're going to do right now is we're going to reflect this off of which axis? The x-axis, which means if you flip this shape over this line, where would it end up? Yep, somewhere down here. Okay, so what we're gonna do is this. Let's take each of these points and find out what the point itself would be if it were to be reflected over the x-axis. Okay, so again, x-axis. So if I'm reflecting negative 2, 1 over the x-axis, well, which one will actually change? Yeah, the y, right? So it'll be negative 2, negative 1. Okay, but B, 1, 4 will turn into what? Yep, 1, negative 4. And C will be what? Yep, 3, negative 2, right? So let's plot these points. Negative 2, negative 1, A prime. And by the way, you probably should label these points as you plot them. Don't plot them after you get your triangle. Okay, it's always good to, you know, stay on top of things. All right, 1, negative 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, B prime, and then C prime is 3, negative 2. Okay, and I'm going to connect them. Now I'm going to go ahead. Should I use this and pick the color? I probably should. Yeah, let's do that. With that, yep, there we go. Wow. Okay, all right. Like this. See that? Right? That makes sense. Totally. That makes total sense, right? If you flip the shape over the x-axis, that's exactly what that would look like, right? So look, all right, this was the answer key, okay? So that's exactly it. And again, right, this was the rule, but you guys know the rule already, so no need to go over it. Okay, real quick, last one. All right, let's set up the xy axis. Why don't you guys try this one on your own? Okay, because I think we're at that stage where I trust you to do this without too much difficulty. Okay, so if you want to, go ahead, press pause, do this one, and then we'll go over it. Okay. All right, and we're back. So let's see, 1, 3. Let's plot the. Let's draw the shape first. 1, 3, 5, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 2, and then 4, negative 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1. So the shape looks something like this. All right. Let's see. Okay, now we got our triangle reflect over the y-axis. So if you were to like swing this shape over the y-axis, right? Like this mirror here, if you were to draw a mirror image of this triangle, where will it land? Somewhere over here, right? Just so that you know. Okay, having said that, what's A prime? Let's see, 1, negative, let me draw these first too. Okay, all right. Now, 1, 3 over the y-axis, that means the first number changes. It'll be negative 1, 3. This will be negative 5, 2. This will be negative 4, negative 1. Okay? All right. So let's see, because the x value changes, right? So negative 1, 3, it's here. Negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, yeah. That'd be prime, right? Negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That's C prime. Okay, see that? All right, let's connect them to see how it looks. All right. Again, I encourage you strongly to use a ruler. All right, because you want these shapes to look good, right? So okay. All right. Let's see. Yep, that looks like it, right? If you were to take this shape, mirror this over the y axis, that's exactly what it will look like. And my answer key says the same thing. All right. That's it. Okay. All right. Let me sign off here. Today was a long lesson. Okay. I'm not gonna lie. So thanks for watching, and tomorrow we'll go ahead and do some quadrilaterals, which means four-sided shapes. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye. Okay. Oh, there we go. There's the bell. All right. Don't tell me you don't miss that bell.
OMG, that was so good.